I would love to learn. I was just going to ask, what is the strategy then when, you're kind of growing and moving over time to allow that culture to, fruition, right? And for people to learn and feel happy in their environment, but also going with the speed of whatever the company's doing, technology, and all those things.
Yeah. So this is really in the book Talent Tectonics really digs into this. It's really managing, keeping in mind the very fundamental psychological needs that make people good at change. People are good at change when they have three things. When they understand the reason for this change, when they understand how it benefits them, how is what I'm being asked to do helping me with what I want from life, which isn't necessarily what the company wants from life. It might be spending more time with their children. It might be advancing their career and maybe even leaving the organization, which I'll come back to too, because the problem is not turnover. The problem is unmanaged turnover. Every single one of your employees is going to leave at some point, sure as death and taxes. The issue is not, you don't want to hold on to people just to hold on to them. What you want is to manage people effectively so that when they leave, it's a positive thing for you and the company. Embrace transition. Don't think of turnover, think of it as transition. But but going back to that, the first thing is making sure that what people are working on, the work is fulfilling what they want from a job, from life, from work, from career. When we understand the reason why we're going through it. The second thing is humans are social animals. When we're learning, it's really important that we feel supported and cared for, that the organization thinks of us as humans. We feel a sense of belonging, a sense of empathy. And so making sure that if you're a small business owner, you or anyone in your company that is supporting people is they don't have to be counselors or anything, and you don't want them to be, but they should be empathetic. They should listen. And so often in companies, we don't promote people to management roles because they're good at coaching and listening. We promote them because they're good tactical people, right? And what makes you good as an individual contributor does not necessarily make you good as a manager. And on top of it, we don't even teach them how to manage. We just say, wow, you're like our top performing whatever, so we're going to make you manager. That just doesn't make sense. Make sure you're putting people into roles where they understand that if they're supposed to guide other people in their careers, they need to be supportive and empathetic and listen to these people. And then the third one is, so we need to have a sense of purpose for the change, a sense of belonging and caring. And the third one is that we need to feel a sense of confidence, that we need to feel that we can get the tools and resources to be successful in the change, which kind of gets back to what I was talking about earlier, technology and learning. That's where that comes in. If people have those three things, a sense of meaning, a sense of belonging, a sense of confidence, it is amazing how much change people can deal with. And it's not even, and if you think about even in your own career, that's probably some of the most enjoyable times in your own career were times where you were going through considerable change. And it was stressful, but it was that good stress of doing something that's meaningful with people that you support and trust and being confident we can get it done. It's not going to be easy, but it's going to be valuable. And that's what you're trying to create when it talks about a learning organization, that environment.
I have found that meaning is critical. It's so critical. If you don't know, if you don't have skin in the game, if you really don't care about the work, then you're unlikely to push through your limits, to create new things, and to be really invested, right? So how important do you think is it for the company to have employees have a stake in the purpose of the company, or at least get a better understanding of, hey, you're producing this, but this is how it's relevant to the purpose of what we do as in work in the company?
I think it is valuable. It's going to vary on the employee. There's basically, when people are looking for purpose from work, there tend to be like three things that they're looking at. One is higher order purpose, that the work that I'm doing is meaningful. And we tend to tie meaningful to things that positively impact other living things, whether it's the planet, people, pets. Somehow what I am doing is making a positive impact on the lives of something else that is alive. That's kind of like a higher order purpose. But the other reasons that we work, sometimes the purpose is to fulfill my own career potential, that this is building my capabilities. It's allowing me to be all I can be. And it's sort of self-actualization and realization. It's making me feel good that I'm accomplishing something meaningful for myself. But the third that is equally, sometimes even the most important is it's allowing me to do the things outside of work that are the reason why I'm sometimes working, which is like providing for my family, be able to sort of live the lifestyle that I want to live. And, there's, when they always stress this, things don't make us happy, people. Experiences and relationships make us happy, but still things make our life more comfortable.
Easier. Certainly. Right.
So I think going back to that is the concept of having more of what I call an employee experience mindset as a leader, as a company, thinking about it, understanding the work of your employees from their perspective. Why are they working for you? Because why they're working for you may not be the same reason that you're employing them. And that's okay. I think part of it is realizing that you can't get what you need from employees if employees don't get what they want from you, but employees can't get what they want from you if you don't get what they need from them. Good experiences don't come from working for failing companies. So it's about a balance. But historically, companies really thought more about, we have money. If you want it, you'll do what we tell you. We are in a different labor shortage. That's the other thing in talent tectonics. Because of declining birth rates and living longer and a variety of other things, there are more people aging out of a lot of our labor markets and entering into them. And when I sort of say something, kids these days don't want to work. That's not true. They're working. They just don't want to work for lousy companies. And they don't have to. And neither do anyone at any age. They're 2 clicks on Google from a better job. So as a small company, small companies, in my experience, tend to even have the very best work environments, but they can also have the very worst work environments because it's so influenced by the personality of the leader of the owner of that company.
Right.
So if you want talent, you, as an owner of that company, better get really good at being your best self at work, because otherwise you're going to find yourself having to employ the people that no one else wants. Right. And that's not a good staffing strategy. And even then, you may not be able to get enough people.
Right. Oh my gosh, so many questions. I mean, I know that a lot of these things are influenced also by the age groups, millennials versus Gen X and Gen Z and all these things, and their philosophies and thoughts on work.
Yeah, although, all right, you're getting me on my soapbox one. First of all, I am not a big fan of generational stuff because labeling people based on their demographic characteristics and making generalizations about them is called stereotyping. Mm-hmm. Yeah, are there differences based on our career stages? Yeah, absolutely. When you're in your 20s and you don't have kids and stuff like that, you act differently when you're in your 40s and have a mortgage and children. Yeah, there are things that a lot of these differences we ascribe to, like, generations, is really more differences associated with career stage and life stage. And there are differences in attitudes for sure, but a lot of this stuff permeates across all generations. People are quitting at every age. They're quitting to find better jobs because they can, and it's easy. It's so much easier to change jobs. I think that's something a lot of business owners who tend to be older don't realize, that the labor market is so different now from what it was if you entered into the work market, let's say in the 80s or 90s. It is so much easier to find different jobs. You can go on the internet and say, find me a job in my location, and hundreds will come up immediately. There's no expectation that you're going to spend your whole career at one place. So right. I think as small business owners, we've really, really need to realize that that's the market that you're in. The advantage, though, that you have is you can develop a reputation as a great place to work. And what you should be known as is not just a great place to work, but a place that when people came here, when they left to a better job than what they came into. You are a place where people grow their career, not a place where they just go and get a paycheck till they quit.
Right. So let's go back to this turnover then, because I think that, obviously giving them purpose and all these other pieces help keep people in companies, but turnover is going to happen. Attrition is going to happen. So how can a company plan or in any way support that process?
It's to be just comfortable with it, to think of it in terms of not turnover, but in terms of transition, just as you phrased it. I'll give you an example. One of the jobs early in my career, when I was hired, the person who hired me said, if this is a successful hire, he goes, you're not going to work here in 4 years. He goes, you're going to develop, you're going to become new capabilities, you're going to move on. This is not a lifetime place for you to stay. And even if people aren't going to move on, you should always be thinking about their job is going to change. It's not healthy to do the same thing over and over and over and over again. It's, we should be constantly growing. And so managing people and managing employees with the idea that we want you to always be working on something you don't know how to do, because that's where we learn. That's another part about culture too. When you assign jobs, intentionally giving people assignments because, you don't know how to do it, but I believe that you could learn how to do it. And if you learn how to do it, you become more valuable for us, but you also become more valuable for yourself. And so managing with this idea of a growth mindset, and accepting that you want your employees to have a feeling of like, if they want to leave, if they're thinking, I want to do something else, you want them to feel comfortable enough that they could come and talk to you and you'd be like, hey, if what you want to do, we can't do, we're going to help you do it. We're going to be supportive. But maybe if they come to you and you say, well, what you want to do, you actually could do here. And let's find a way to make it work so you don't have to leave. But create enough trust with employees that what you really care about is you want them to be successful in a way that makes you successful, but they both should be fully committed to it. And that means accepting that they're not going to be here forever. And that's okay. That's part of what growth is about. It's a little bit like raising kids, I guess. Somebody once asked me when my kids moved out, they said, are you sad that they're gone? And I'm like, not as sad as I'd be if they were still here.
Right. You don't want them to live with you forever. You want them to grow and become adults.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay. So how can companies gain support for employee development? I'm a huge fan of this idea of supporting, employees to grow and to move up or to move out, right? Depending on what their personal desires are. But is it becoming more or less important to train employees as a whole? And I'm just curious, kind of like a separate question, but in bigger companies, employees versus contractors is a big deal in terms of development. And I'm curious if you have any thoughts on how to treat them. So I have my own thoughts on this, but.
Well, that Teany is a major topic in and of itself, the whole contractor concept. I think a lot of this is if you look at why we need to sort of manage people for growth, part of it is that the world's changing, but part of it's when people feel most fulfilled. Going back to this, that we don't fear change. Somebody has asked me, actually been asked a lot of times in my career, how do you teach people to be adaptable? And I was like, that's the wrong question to ask. We're born adaptable. The only thing kids know how to do when they're born is eat, poop, and learn. And I don't know if you have children, but they're really good at all three of them.
Yep.
But the thing is that you don't teach your kids how to learn. I mean, you just say, oh, you're 6 months old, time to enroll you in crawling class. They just figure it out. And that's one of the joys of being a parent, is seeing this unbelievable innate ability and desire and joy in learning. And so your job as a parent is to create that environment. And then the problem is that historically we haven't managed people for learning. We've managed them for productivity. And as I talked about earlier, we're most productive when we're doing stuff we already know how to do. But now increasingly in companies, what you need people to do is going to change all the time, or how you're going to need them to do it is going to change. And so how do we manage that, tap into that? And it does go back again to this idea of like, make sure you're managing with a sense of purpose to what matters to them. Make sure that you're providing a sense of caring, sympathy, empathy, so they feel a sense of belonging, and making sure you're providing the tasks and the tools so they have a sense of confidence they can be successful. When you do that, you're going to become a more attractive employer. You're going to be known as this place, and when people leave, because they might, and that's if you're really good at development, people are going to develop and they might leave. Otherwise, might just stay there and go, I love it because I'm learning all the time. We are happiest when we are learning. I think that's one of the myths. We are happiest when we are challenged like that. And I think you will develop a reputation as this like great place to work because people are always learning and challenged in a positive, constructive way. I think with your issue of contractors, that's like a whole nother topic. I guess
we don't have that could be a whole separate call.
Yeah.
I know it's tricky. And actually, I think more importantly, I wanted to ask you something about, so if you do have to give people the sense of, wanting to continue learning, having purpose in themselves and in the company and all that, how do you then train, from the top down, the management teams to bring that essence into the working folks?
That's a great question. The first thing is managers tend to manage the way they are managed themselves. So again, the advantage you have as a small business owner is you can change your culture by changing your own behavior. Matter of fact, that's the only real way you can change it. That's something large companies don't have. Now, so if you, as the owner of the business, actively coach people, recognize people, challenge people to say, hey, I don't want you doing the same thing over and over and over again. I want you intentionally to give you assignments where you're feeling, hey, I'm doing something I don't know how to do, but I'm learning new stuff. If you do that, if you manage your own managers that way, they're going to start managing their own employees that way. The other thing is that you do also need to be accountable as a leader. One of the things that I hate is a statement that says, employees don't quit companies, they quit managers. That's not true. They quit companies that employ bad managers. If you as a leader need to really realize that managing people is really a critical task, especially when we're managing them for a fast changing world where talent is really short, that managers should be, one, hopefully put in the role because they have a desire to manage people. I know a lot of people who put in manager roles that I didn't really want to do it, but it was the only way I could get paid more. So I took on managing, not because I like to manage people, because I want to get paid more. That's a bad reason to make somebody a manager. Find other ways to reward people, for then forcing them to move into a role that doesn't really fit them. The second thing is that a lot of managers don't get training on how to manage people. How much training have you given? And there's a lot available. This is the advantage. There's no shortage of stuff on the internet that you can get access to. Find some philosophy about management. There's a zillion of them on coaching and coaching methods.
More, right?
Excuse me?
The bigger companies train more.
They do train more, but that's what I said. But that's been removed now. You can get access to training, figure out something that fits with your company, some philosophy around how we want to manage people, servant leadership, or there's just all kinds of different ones, but find one that fits your personality, if you will, and make sure managers are trained on it. And then coach your managers the way you want them to coach other people. So if you do these things, also I'd say reward managers too for it. One of the things I often ask is this isn't a big company question, but I think it would apply to small companies, is how do you reward managers that promote people off of their teams? If you're a good development coaching manager, part of the point you're going to talk to an employee and say, and it's usually some of your highest performing employees, you just say, the next step in your career is for you to not work for me anymore. It's for you to move to something new. If you have a manager that embraces coaching like that, which is what you want, how do you reward them if they do that? A lot of companies punish them by not backfilling the position, right?
Yeah.
Creating a development culture is not having managers that cling to talent. It's have managers that talent clings to them. So thinking really about that.
It's a